You know what? I can't prove what I'm about to say, but apparently that doesn't matter when it comes to talking about true crime on YouTube. So I'm going to say what no one else seems to be willing to say. I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room. YouTube true crime is corrupt as... Now, don't try to black and white me on this issue. I'm not saying that every single true crime YouTube channel is corrupt. I'm saying that there's enough corruption in YouTube true crime for it to have changed what it means to consume true crime on YouTube in palpable ways. Now, let's get on the same page about what I mean by corrupt, okay? Here's the definition of corrupt. Having or showing a willingness to act dishonestly in return for money or personal gain. Okay, so what would it mean to act dishonestly when talking about true crime on YouTube? It means presenting a case in a certain light without disclosing that you're being compensated in one way or another by one of the opposing parties. A hypothetical example would be if someone like Chris McDonough at the Interview Room, and this is totally hypothetical, okay? This has not happened. But let's say Chris came out and said, hey guys, I have absolute proof that Dawn and Candace Wells are innocent and that the police have cleared them from any investigation into the disappearance of their daughter, Summer Wells. And then Chris says, but I got this from a secret source, so I can't show it to you. You just have to take it from me. Or maybe even he shows you something close enough to proof, like a screenshot of a conversation with someone who he says in law enforcement, which says that Dawn and Candace have been cleared. And let's say that that made all kinds of headlines and all kinds of content was made all over YouTube about it, because we know that would cause a huge amount of ruckus after how hard the Interview Room has come down on the Wells. There would be corruption in that story if we found out later that Chris McDonough had been compensated to say that. It doesn't matter how he was compensated. It doesn't matter who compensated him. As long as he was compensated and received some sort of personal gain, and he didn't disclose that to his audience, that is corruption. So now that we've established that, it's pretty easy to imagine that there's a ton of corruption going on around YouTube. Remember, I said I can't prove any of this, but apparently that doesn't matter around here. So tell me this, okay? What the hell is going on in the Karen Read case? What is driving so many different creators to jump on this free Karen Read bandwagon? I mean, I get it. People deserve a fair and equal chance at justice. But when you really take a step back and look at it, the only difference between her case and the thousands and thousands of other cases rumbling around justice system right now is that there's a rabid group of internet followers who are really good at getting attention. They're really good at exploiting the fact that the internet brings out the worst behavior in people and refuses to control it or make people take accountability for it. So people with abusive and criminal histories like Turtleboy burst onto the scene, and he uses his considerable social media prowess to whip up a frenzy over a pretty uninteresting case. I mean, may John O'Keefe rest in peace. No one deserves to die the way he died. But Turtleboy has whipped up such a cultish frenzy that he has landed himself in jail for witness intimidation and contempt of court, and he's still sending edicts out from his friggin' prison cell, kind of like Warren Jeffs and the FLDS. He has other YouTubers hosting his channel for him while he's gone, and he has people keeping the flame going for him. He has YouTubers getting into debates with other YouTubers about the merits of the case against Karen Read, and it appears that their entire theory for the defense of the case is police corruption. That's really it. The meat of the defense is police corruption. So that's used as a justification by Turtleboy and his followers to slander, humiliate, dox, and harass the witnesses in the case. Because the victim is a police officer, and when he died, he was at another police officer's house at a party with Karen Read, And Turtleboy and his followers are claiming it's a major cover-up, including all of the most important investigative agencies. To me, there's a lot more going on with the situation than a bunch of YouTubers really seeing a valid police cover-up defense. And honestly, this is being investigated, apparently. It has been said that Turtleboy's Lexus payments are getting made by Karen Reed's brother. Again, this hasn't been proven, but this is being investigated. Turtleboy said this on the stand when he was last in court. Now, again, we don't know this for sure. We don't know exactly who's been corrupted and who hasn't. And I don't know who has done the corrupting and why, but I don't think we can trust the information coming out about that case on YouTube because it has been tainted and compromised by forces we just can't see. Now, here's another example of a totally unexplainable defense on YouTube. I am regularly critical of Lana Oriani from Truth and Transparency, and one of the reasons is because she'll pull mundane cases out of the ether and put them on the map with absolutely wild conspiracy theories that just stink of some sort of payola. Lately, she's been heavily covering the murder of Brian Drake to declare the innocence of the only suspect ever named in the case, Daniel Moore. Now, he's been cleared since then, but he's the only suspect that's been named in the case. And he was a suspect because he confessed. But that confession has been thrown out, okay? Oriani has gone out of her way to accuse Brian Drake's wife, Jennifer, of the murder using Oriani word salad and her misinterpretations of discovery. And in the process of putting the murder on Drake's wife, she has painted this woman as a cold, adulterous murderer. But if that wasn't enough, she has also implicated Drake's minor son in the murder as well. Now, neither of these people have ever been named suspects or persons of interest, but Oriani has done hours and hours of live streams to her 44,000 subscribers, painting them as murderers. And she's named the only suspect who's ever been named in the case as an upstanding doctor and father and wrongfully accused man. Now, God rest poor Brian Drake, the deceased. But we have to ask ourselves, what is the driving force behind this campaign to create reasonable doubt for the primary suspect? Does this come out of the kindness of Oriani's virtuous heart? If you followed my channel for any amount of time, you know how I might answer that question. Any woman who's willing to scam an entire community in believing that she has started a legitimate nonprofit and continues to collect donations for that nonprofit after it's been shut down by the state of Ohio is more than willing to collect payola to push a certain narrative, regardless of how stupid or nonsensical it is or how much it hurts that deceased man's family. Now, I have one more possible example, again, one I can never prove, but it has never made sense. What was Critical K's motivation to come out so hard against the mother of Christian Androcchio? I mean, Critical K always had a reputation for being contrarian. She famously called Shanann Watts a bitch who drove Chris Watts to murder.
She drove him to lose his shit. Oh my God, she did not drive him. She did. She did. You don't know what went on, Laura. She did. She drove him insane. Come on, why are you victim blaming? She was the bitch.
And she built her channel on defending the indefensible. But there was something really different about the way she came out about the Christian Androcchio case. She immediately came out in strong defense of the two people who were most implicated in the suspicious circumstances surrounding his death, his girlfriend and his roommate. She interviewed them on her show, and she allowed them to make all kinds of salacious allegations against Christian's family, particularly his mother, Ray. She piled on to those accusations of Christian's mothers by saying that she provided drugs to minors. And that was a very nasty allegation to make against a nurse practitioner. And Kay somehow ended up with sealed photos of the crime scene, unredacted, which she posted unredacted in her Discord or Patreon. I don't remember which. But either way, you had to pay to get access to those photos. Just like when Zavgirl posted photos of Gannon Stout in her Patreon, but years before. Critical K mounted this intense smear campaign on the tail of Kendall Rae's very successful series about the death of Christian Androcchio, which was much more sympathetic to the Androcchio family and did paint Christian's girlfriend and roommate in a rather unsympathetic light. And that probably sparked a desire by someone, perhaps the girlfriend and the roommate or someone connected to them, to have another YouTuber change up the narrative. This does beg the question of whether Kendall Rae was compensated to do her coverage of the Androcchio case, but in all honesty, I'm not as concerned about that because her coverage was much more respectful and she didn't go on a rampage against anyone. On the contrary, I vividly remember Critical K boasting about how she was coming after Kendall Rae's true crime crown, and then she went on to slander and harass Rae Androcchio. Well, let's see. How did that work out? Kendall Rae is kicking ass with 3.7 million subscribers, while Critical K is on Facebook panhandling for money after being ordered to pay $500,000 to Rae Androcchio for defamation. We'll probably never know whether Critical K got some sort of payola for her Androcchio coverage, but if she did, I guarantee you it wasn't enough to cover that $500,000 and the untold amounts of humiliation she has and will continue to endure for that short-term gain. Remember, Critical K also lost her YouTube channel at its height when all this went down. What's the moral of the story for all of this? Just for you to be aware that with some YouTubers who are pushing a strong agenda on one side of the case or other, the defense or the victims or whatever, you have to consider whether they're being dishonest about why they've taken that side and why they're going so hard, why are they pushing the limits, why they're willing to break terms of service so easily. If they can't give you a straight, fact-based and logical answer other than police corruption without proving it, they are worth a long side eye. Having said that, please, please, please do not send hate to anyone mentioned in this video or anyone on the internet, honestly. As I've said throughout this video, we'll never know where the corruption is. We just have to be aware that it exists. And maybe the reason an agenda is being pushed so hard. But the most important reason not to send hate is because it's counterproductive. The internet loves hate. People on the internet thrive from getting hate. When you send hate, you send them attention. That will just send more viewers their way. And believe me, it's something I grapple with every day as I do research for this channel. But as a viewer, the strongest message you can send on YouTube is a total lack of engagement on a channel that you know is being dishonest and exploitative. And hey, one last little thing. If you haven't yet, please go sub up to my other channel, Disorder in the Court. The link is in the description. That's where I go live to talk about trials and court cases, both on YouTube and off YouTube. And I plan to go live really soon over there to talk about the recent round of trials that are going on because they're rather head spinning. Thank you very much for watching and peace out.